Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. पाद परिवंशकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शीला प्रभुपाद की इस्कॉन फंड आचार्य शीला प्रभुपाद की नम आचार्य शीला हरिदास ठाकुर की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So welcome to the morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are reciting the verse from Canto 4, Chapter 8. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home. And the text number 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 22. Tameva vastasaya bhrutya vatsalam mumukshubirmrugya padabja padahitam ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite manasya bhajeshva purusham tameva vastasaya bhrutya vatsalam mumukshubirmrugya padabja padahitam ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite manasya bhajasva purusham tameva vasasraya bhrutya vatsalam mumukshubirmrugya padabja padapitam ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite manasya bhajasva purusham. About this basa manasya vastapya bhajasva purusham tameva vasasraya bhrutya vatsalam mokshabirmrugya padabja padatim ananya bhave nija dharma bhavite manasya vasasraya bhucham tameva vasasraya bhrutya vatsalam mumukshubirmugya padabja padatim ananya bhave nija dharma bhavit manasya vasapya bhajasva purusham. Mataji. तमेव वत्साश्रयभृत्य वत्सलम् मुमुक्षुभिर्मृग्य पदाब्जपद्धतिम् अनन्यभावे निजधर्मभाविते मनस्यवस्थाप्य भजस्व पुरुषम् तमेव वत्साश्रयभृत्य वत्सलम् मुमुक्षुभिर्मृग्य पदाब्जपद्धतिम् अनन्यभावे निजधर्मभाविते मनस्यवस्थाप्य भजस्व पुरुषम्. So what to what meaning? Tam, him, eva, also, vatsa, my dear boy, ashraya, take shelter, Vrichyavatsalam, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Mumukshubi, also by persons desiring liberation. Mrugya, to be sought. Padabja, lotus feet. Paddatim, system. Ananya Bhave, in an unflinching situation. Nijadharma Bhavite, being situated in one's original constitutional position. Manasi, onto the mind. Avastapya, placing. Bhajasva, go on executing devotional service. Purusham, the Supreme Person. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, please repeat. My dear boy, you should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service, becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation. Just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your mind, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. Purport. The system of Bhakti Yoga described by Queen Suniti to her son is the standard way of God realization. Everyone can continue in his constitutional occupational duties and at the same time keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. This was also instructed by the Lord himself to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Go on fighting, but keep me within your mind. That should be the motto of every honest person seeking perfection in Krishna consciousness. In this connection, Queen Suniti advised her son that Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Vrichyavatchala, which indicates that he is very kind to his devotees. She said, "You came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother, but I am unable to do any good for you. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees that if you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. When everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotee." Queen Suniti also stressed that the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not easy, but is sought after by great sages who are very advanced in spiritual realization. Queen Suniti also indicated by her instructions that Dhruva Maharaj was only a small child, 5 years old, and it was not possible for him to purify himself by the way of karma kanda, but by the process of bhakti yoga, even a child less than 5 years old or anyone of any age can be purified. That is the special significance of bhakti yoga. Therefore, she advised him not to accept worshipping of demigods or any other process, but take, simply to take to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result would be all perfection. As soon as one places the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart, everything becomes easy and successful. Let's do Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamsya. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. So we are continuing the pastime of Dhruv Maharaj. So far we heard that Dhruv Maharaj went to his father Uttanapad and he wanted to sit on the lap of Uttanapad. But Uttanapad, there was Surichi, the another wife, second wife of Uttanapad. She was there and her son Uttama was sitting on the lap of Uttanapad. So, but when Dhruva went, the stepmother told, no, you are not supposed to sit here. If you have to sit on his father's lap, you have to take the birth from my womb. And she told Dhruva to go and take the shelter of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. So Dhruv Maharaj came back to his mother, and with a very disappointed, angry, and mother started speaking to Dhruv Maharaj. So in the today's verse, the same thing, mother continuing speaking to Dhruv Maharaj. She said, my dear boy, you also should take the shelter of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotee. Person seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take the shelter of lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. This is what Mother Suniti is telling, to go and take the shelter of Lord, engage, put your mind on the lotus feet of Supreme Lord and perform devotion. And the last line of the purport, Prabhupada mentions, as soon as one places the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart, everything becomes easy and successful. That is one of the important line we can meditate on that, right? It's Prabhupada is saying, as soon as you keep your mind in Supreme Personality of Godhead, whatever activities you are doing, it will become easy and successful. That is what Prabhupada is saying. So when we say, try to, like, this is the same pastime Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to listen again and again, right? This is the Dhruv Maharaj pastime. He used to ask Gadadhar Pandit to repeat the same pastime again and again. So now we are reading the same topic. So if you see the difference between the Suniti and Surichi's comments, like Suniti is Dhruv Maharaj's mother and Surichi is his stepmother. The Surichi, she told, okay, if you want to sit on the lap of the Uttanapad, you have to take the birth of from my womb. So now you go and take the shelter of Vishnu. In the next birth, you will be, you can, you will get, if you are fortunate, you will take the birth from my womb, and then you are allowed to sit on the lap of Uttanapa. That's what she. So she doesn't, when she spoke arrogantly, but she was not bothering about consequences of her harsh words. Whereas when Dhruva Maharaj came back to Mother Suniti, and she was very cautious that she doesn't want her son to get any revengeful thoughts, because this was a very humiliated incident to Dhruva Maharaj, and she was very not happy, and her mother Suniti was very cautious that the Dhruva Maharaj should not get any revengeful negative thoughts. And that's the way she is mentioning that, yes, you take the shelter of Supreme Lord. Your great grandfather Brahma took the shelter of Supreme Lord, and your grandfather Swayambhuva Manu also took the shelter of Supreme Lord. So you also take the Supreme Personality of Godhead, shelter of Lord. So both are saying that the Surichi also tells Suniti, but the Surichi is arrogant. But Suniti, she understands that the Swayambhuva Manu, Brahma took the shelter and they became successful. So with the same intention, with the same mindset, she is pacifying Dhruva Maharaj to take the shelter of Supreme Lord. So both having the same word repeating, but the mindset, the consciousness we need to observe. Suruchi is completely in a negative mindset, arrogant. Whereas Suniti, the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, she is telling in a positive way. Your grandfather did, your grandfather did, they are successful, you also take the shelter. So she is trying to pacify. Nurture him in a positive way, so that he will be going in a right direction rather than going in a revengeful mood, right? And we all know, right, in Bhagavad Gita, if you worship Supreme Lord, right, what will happen? Yad gatvan nivartante taddama paramam mama, right? You will go back to the Vaikuntha planet, you will never come back. Mother Suniti, she understands that when we take the shelter of Supreme Lord, what is the benefit? She understands. With that motive, she is telling. But whereas Surichi, the stepmother, is saying that you take the shelter of, and then you take the birth in my womb. That's very low level. When you take the shelter of Krishna, you don't need to take any birth in the material world. You directly go by. But she doesn't have that knowledge. That ignorance is there, and with arrogance, she was. So this is the difference between the Suniti's comment, Surichi comment. Both are telling the take shelter of the Supreme Lord, but one is in completely arrogant and the negative way. Other one is completely trying to motivate Dhruva Maharaj in a positive line. See, that is the one thing. Now, similar instructions. We hear same thing, many instructions from the great Vaishnavas, sannyasis, spiritual master, right? They also tell to take the shelter of Supreme Lord. Of course, most of them will take, and some of them will not take. Don't take seriously the instructions. Okay, still time is there, we can do it later. Now we are busy with so and so stuff. We'll approach Krishna, we'll take the shelter later point of time, right? But Dhruva Maharaj is he is serious now. Like, this is where we need to understand. Like, let's imagine if the Dhruva Maharaj went to Uttanapad happily agreed Dhruva Maharaj to sit on lap. And then after some time, Dhruva Maharaj sat on lap of Uttanapad and he went back to Mother Suniti. Then what would have happened? Does Mother Suniti would advise him to go back to take the shelter of Supreme Lord? Because her mindset is positive, the spiritual knowledge, she's having knowledge of spirituality. So she would, if she suggested that, okay, you take the shelter of Supreme Lord, what would have Dhruva Maharaj told? No, I am very small boy, 5 years boy, I can let me play. After some time, I will take the shelter. So that would have happened. This is imagination, not real. We are analyzing the situation, right? What is that important now? But Dhruva Maharaj is very serious. She wanted to pacify, but she wanted to get something, because she was humiliated by stepmother. She wanted to get out of that feeling. She wanted to do anything to overcome that humiliation, right? That is the situation. So the same thing. If the situation makes us to think like that. So there is always like a difference between hearing and listening, right? When here in this case, Dhruva Maharaj is listening. What it means? When you listen, it goes from ear to heart. It will touch heart, and you will be very rigid. You will be determined to take the instruction seriously. When you hear just sound vibration goes, it doesn't have impact. So the what is the situation? That situation makes us to either you listen or hear. In this case, Dhruv Maharaj instruction situation, it is situation that he was humiliated, but he was very angry. Now that situation forcing him to listen carefully and follow the instructions of her mother, taking the shelter of Supreme Lord. So this is the same thing in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. Kunti Maharani is saying, right, Padam Padam Yat Vipadam, that she wanted always to have the calamities in her life so that she can remember Krishna. Right? The Kunti Maharani told in a philosophical way. We can see in Dhruv Maharaj past time same thing. Dhruv Maharaj was having the difficult time, and he was humiliated, and her mother is suggesting to take the shelter of Supreme Lord, and he is listening very carefully, not just listening, not just hearing and ignoring. She wanted to take that instructions very seriously. So this is where the difference between the listening and hearing. So same way we can see in the Prabhupada life. Like what he said when the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told that, okay, you have a good in English and you can easily preach this knowledge in Western world. He took that instruction very seriously. And what happened? He entire his life he was meditating on that instruction. He wanted to implement that instruction, and he was able to. Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON worldwide, and we know the history. So when you listen the instructions carefully, you take it seriously, then you will be able to progress in your life, devotional, and you will be able to successful. There is another instance story as well. It is like and I heard in one lecture, there is a big temple in Kolkata, Gaudiamite temple, and that His Grace, His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati constructed that temple in Kolkata. There is a nice pastime associated with that temple. There is a one devotee. He was very sincerely following the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and he one day Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was very much attracted with the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and he was very wealthy person, very rich person. He donated all his money for the construction of that temple. Inside, he donated such that once the temple is constructed, he doesn't have any money and shelter to stay. And then he came back to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was telling in front of everyone, this person donated everything for the temple construction, and even then this person was asking, the devotee was asking to shelter in the temple. So he was appreciating, the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is appreciating this devotee, and but the devotee was telling, Maharaj, you have everything in your life. You have Krishna with you. You have everything. That Krishna means everything with you. What I don't have anything. I have simply your shelter. Right? That's what his understanding. Krishna's presence of Krishna, mercy of Krishna is everything. When we hear through the spiritual master, when we hear through the great acharyas, we get to know that, and we inspired, and we take the instruction seriously, and we follow. This is what we see in Prabhupada's example, and this one. So listening the instructions attentively is very careful. Same thing, Dhruv Maharaj is in the situation where he is taking the instruction very seriously. Now, the Mother Suniti was telling in this verse, like the purport Prabhupada was telling, what will happen when you take the shelter of Krishna, the Supreme Lord? She was telling, when everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotee. When you surrender to Krishna, when you take the shelter of Krishna, what will happen? What is the benefit? When everyone else fails to support you, when everyone fails to remove your misery, what will happen? Krishna will take the give your shelter. Like example, we can see example Draupadi in Mahabharata. What happened? Like the Dushasana came and pulled her into the court. He was humiliating the Draupadi, and she was trying to protect herself. She prayed Bhishma Dev. She also requested Dronacharya. She also requested her husbands, and finally she was trying to save herself. But all the attempts failed. Finally, she surrendered to Krishna, and Krishna saved her. Right? This is same thing. We can see many examples. And Prahlad Maharaj, right? Prahlad Maharaj was also tortured by his father. So many ways, different ways. Nobody was there to help. But finally, Lord Narsingadev appeared and he protected. So this is the same thing. Same Mother Suniti was telling, and we can see the examples in from our Srimad Bhagavatam past tense. And what happens when you take the shelter of Supreme Lord? Like, okay, you took the shelter of Supreme Lord, He will protect. But the what kind of mercy you will get? Like same thing in the purport Srila Prabhupada was telling. Krishna is kind to his devotees. If you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. So the purport Srila Prabhupada was commenting that if your the affection you receive from millions of mothers is, it will be surpassed. When Krishna's mercy comes, that is much, much bigger than the whatever love you receive from millions of mothers. So that is what the Suniti is presenting in this. So from this discussion, we will get another important aspect. We can understand another important aspect we can take from this conversation. Like if you see, Mother Suniti is very spiritually elevated, knowledgeable person, and that's the reason she is guiding her son in a right way. Like imagine if the Suniti was like materially very like a Surichi also. If the Mother Suniti is also arrogant, what she would have done? She would have gone to the Surichi, or she would have had a fight with him or something good. But what is doing? She is dealing the situation in a different way. So same way in our life, we will encounter many difficulties, many problems in our life, right? It's like Srimad Bhagavatam is telling, it's dukkhalayam ashashatam. Every stage of life, every time we get so many challenges, so many difficulties in our life, and how we deal, how we respond to that situation, and what would be our solution, that determines our position, our status, who are we. Like we have two options. We can solve the problem with our material knowledge, material support, or we can deal the same situation with a spiritual knowledge. That is the difference. Here Mother Suniti is dealing with whatever spiritual knowledge she has, based on that she is trying to resolve the situation. Whereas in case of normal situation, material world, we try to deal with a material situation. Like imagine, if you see any problem, we've seen many examples, we see a few more examples down the line, but if you try to solve any problem with your material skills, material knowledge, what will happen? For time being, that issue will be resolved, but after some time, some other issue will come up. Right? Example, few years back we all know the corona, right? Everybody got impacted. All throughout the world, people suffered. And to encounter that problem, some pharmaceutical industries came up with a vaccine, right? That time everybody had to take that. There was no other option, right? Everybody took. But now we started listening the downside, the negative side of corona, right? Some people were saying the blood clot is happening, different side impacts are happening, right? So, people try to cure one thing, but that will generate another problem. This is the effect of material solutions. Whatever way, whatever material solutions we find, always it provides temporary remedy, but down the line again it will cause another problem. There is another real incident here. It happened in China between 1958 to 1962. The campaign they run is the Great Leap Forward. That was a campaign. They wanted to conduct this the activity to protect their food grain. So they observed that the people did some scientifically analyze and found that the sparrows are taking the food grains continuously, and that is causing the production is reducing. The quantity of the food grains are reduced because of the sparrows continuously eating, they taking the, and they are not having the sufficient food grain, and their aim is to increase the quantity of the food grains. So for that, what they decided, they wanted to kill all the sparrows, right? So they made it as a big campaign throughout the entire nation, the China, and they followed this approach. They wanted to kill the sparrows, and they continued, and finally they removed all the sparrows. But what was the consequence? They didn't realize that how the ecology, the system was impacted. When they killed all the sparrows, there is some other insects were there on the ground. Generally, when the sparrows are killing, taking the grains, those sparrows also killing those insects. Now the sparrows are completely vanished. Those insects started eating grains. Because of that, again, same shortage. And people, the insects completely damaging the food grains. As a result, what happened? The food grain quantity was completely reduced. And again, so millions of people died through starving. So this is how the material solutions happen. Whenever we take the solution in the material way, this is why it happens. So, but when you see that mother Suniti, she is not guiding her in it. Okay, you go and fight with this way. Don't accept the negative words. Go and fight with Uttama, or go and fight with Suri. She is not advising that way. She is trying to convince her with the spiritual knowledge. By giving the example of Brahma, by giving the example of Swayambhuva Manu, she is trying to give that Dhruv Maharaj the spiritual solution. The knowledge she got through spiritual knowledge, based on that, she is trying to give the spiritual solution. And we also see the United Nations was established. Prabhupada always takes the example this, right? United Nations was established to build peace and harmony among the different nations. But year on year it is continuing. But have you seen any difference in the global community? No, still war is happening. Still so many things are happening. There is no way that United Nations is able to control. So whatever material solution we give, we try to get, that will not solve the our problems in our material condition nature. In the material world, we will not get the complete solution. That's where we need to incline. We should rely on the spiritual knowledge, the shelter. We should need to take the shelter of Krishna, and we need to take the shelter of spiritual master, and then we follow these instructions. With that knowledge, we should try to address any problem. So address the problem with the spiritual knowledge, not with the material knowledge. So we have many examples. These, like whatever examples I gave at the country level, big nations, even individual level also, we will have the same situation, right? So I was listening one more story, like in India, one of the colleges. Generally, if you want to be happy, you try to find some solutions. Similarly, one college student, he was studying engineering in one prestigious college, and he started having girlfriend, and they both were roaming, and after some time he's lost to focus on studies, and that girlfriend was 1 year senior, and 1 year before she left the college, and after leaving the college, she was not bothering to talk to him, and then with the depression, this person committed suicide. So same thing, we would see many examples. Like if you try to take the shelter of the material based on your material knowledge, you will not be able to get any effect. Even studies also, many people try to achieve good success in studies. And like if you take again Indian situation, the IITs are very topmost institutions in India. It is very hard to get admission in those colleges, and people will work very hard. But in your last 20 years, almost 115 students committed suicide in that colleges, right? So even you take the shelter of opposite sex, or you take the shelter of study, it will always cause any depression. They want to achieve a high score, and they want to compete with each other. When they fail to get the good marks, and they started committing. And at least I saw some numbers. In 2022, almost 24 kids committed suicide in IITs, and in 2023, first 7 months itself they crossed 25 numbers. So this is how if you take the shelter of studies, or if you take any other means, you will have the same issue. And if you take the shelter of money also, it happened. If you invest in stock market and something, one day it collapsed, and it happened in America, US, that person went and killed all his family members. So we would see many such incidents where by taking the shelter of the money, study, and opposite gender, people are not able to, individual level, these are individual, people are suffering. So we always need to rely on the material, not material, the spiritual. Then how we can develop the spiritual knowledge? This is like one example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was given, like another pastime. In Srirangam temple, there was one Brahmana, and he was illiterate. He was sitting on the house, and he was reading the Bhagavad Gita. Since he is illiterate, he doesn't know how to read, and he was holding the Bhagavad Gita in a reverse, upside down, and he's trying to read. And people who are roaming there and thinking that, okay, people were started laughing at him. But one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this person, Brahmana, was reading upside down and is trying to read. Then If Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and asked this Brahmana, are you trying to read Bhagavad Gita? Then that Brahmana understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not humiliating, he is a genuine, he wanted to inquire. Then the Brahmana told, yes, my Guru Maharaj ordered me to read Bhagavad Gita daily 18 chapters. And I am illiterate. I am trying to read, but I could not read. Then he was saying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, you sometimes you are crying, but how you, if you are not able to read, why you are crying? Then that Brahmana told, I am seeing the picture of, in the Bhagavad Gita, he is seeing the picture of Arjuna in the chariot, Krishna is driving the chariot. I see, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, he accepted as a chariot driver to Arjuna. And he is taking the instructions from Arjuna, he is taking the chariot everywhere. By seeing this, such a great person, Supreme Lord, accepted to do service to Arjuna. By seeing that, I am feeling very, like I am having tears in my eyes. So that is what the Brahmana told. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told, you are really understood the Bhagavad Gita. Though you are not physically, you are not able to read the verses, everything, but you understand the key message of Bhagavad Gita. You are completely absorbed in Krishna. Like why we are reading Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, to develop bhakti so that we can absorb in Krishna consciousness. Without reading those verses, without didn't think, he was able to get the same mood, same situation by seeing the photo. So this is how they are developing the spiritual knowledge. Yes, we have to read the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, but that is not the only way. We can serve the Vaishnavas. We can take any service in the temple. Or with all this also, by reading Bhagavad Gita, then we get the same mood which the Brahmana was exhibiting, right? So this is how we can develop the spiritual knowledge. Not only that, we in Bhagavad Gita, we are saying, Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam Sarvalokamayeshwaram Suhudam Sarvabhutanam Jnatmam Shanti Mrichati, right? The Prabhupada was telling, this is the peace formula. In the material world, why we lose the peace? Because of all the material problems. And what Prabhupada is giving? This verse 529, is it like a peace formula? What he is saying in this verse, the translation, a person in full Krishna full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods and other benefactors well-wishers of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So he was saying that we need to worship the Krishna and don't worship we don't need to worship any demigods. Take the shelter of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He is greatest among all, everyone. So you worship Krishna, take the shelter of Krishna, all your miseries will be removed. So this is the peace formula Srila Prabhupada was mentioning. So these are the various things, and with this, with these all the examples, we can see what Mother Suniti was guiding. So you take the shelter of Krishna, all your grandfather, everybody did it. Though Surichi told in an arrogant way, but no, Suniti is advising based on her spiritual knowledge. And with all these examples we can see. And the qualification, right? Material knowledge, see, if you want an example, again I will take. So solving the material problem and solving the issue with the material solution and spiritual solution. If you want to solve any problem through material way, you need to have a proper qualification, right? So for example, take the example of coronavirus. Not everybody can create that vaccine, right? People with specified skill set, they can do. So if you want to do any solution, not all the time you will have ability to provide the solution. You may need to depend on other persons to provide any solution material way. But in spiritual way, you see the example, that illiterate Brahmana, what happened? Just he associated with the Guru, the Vaishnava, and he did service, he got the knowledge. And same way, Dhruv Maharaj, he is only 5 years boy, right? Still, he was trying to pursue that path of bhakti. So, when we do, there is no age limit, there is no qualification required to get the spiritual knowledge, right? In case of material knowledge, you need to provide anyway material solution, you need all the required, you need to have skill set, you need to support from the proper people, right? But in case of spiritual knowledge, 5 years boy can progress in the bhakti, and illiterate can progress in bhakti, everybody, and with that knowledge they can deal with material world problems, right? That is how we can, key message we can learn from this. Even we see the Kunti Maharani also same thing. She was not having a husband and 5 sons, and they were having so many difficulties. And we see in the Kunti Maharani prayers in Bhagavatam, right, how devoted she is, and with the devoted
spiritual knowledge, she was able to survive. In Kunti Maharani prayers also we see, right? She was anticipating, if the more and more calamities come, I will be taking more shelter. I will remember your lotus feet in my mind, right? That is how the nature. And we can see in the Arjuna and Duryodhan in Mahabharat war, what happened? Arjuna both went to Krishna to take the help in the war, in the Kurukshetra war. Before starting the war, they wanted to take the help of Krishna. Both went, Arjuna and Duryodhan. Arjuna, when Krishna saw both Arjuna and Duryodhana were asking help in the battle. Then what Duryodhana asked? Army of Krishna. But where Arjuna was asking? Krishna himself. Right? That is the difference. If the material mind said, okay, if I have so much army, I can defeat anyone. But Arjuna, even the opportunity Krishna, when they both approached Krishna, Arjuna and Duryodhana approached Krishna, Krishna gave chance to Arjuna first. Right? But still Arjuna took the Krishna only. Not, he didn't ask. He gave the option. Duryodhana, Krishna gave the option. Either take my army or I will be joining the you side without any weapon. But still, Arjuna got the first opportunity. But and still he chose Krishna, because Krishna is there will be in the way in the army without any weapon. He will. But whereas the other side full army. So material person will say, okay, if I get this much big army, I can defeat anyone. That is your mindset. And Duryodhana did the same way. He took the army. Whereas Arjuna, he took the Krishna, their side. So finally we know Mahabharat Kurukshetra war, who won? Arjuna. Pandavas won because Krishna was there, their side. So these are the right. When you have the spiritual knowledge, you will make the right choice. You will get the correct decision. You will make the correct decision and you will get the victory. Right? So we need to take the shelter of Krishna. So when we need, with the spiritual knowledge, we need to take the shelter of Krishna. Like, so we need to take the shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Vaishnava. With that, we will be able to develop the spiritual knowledge. And another important, before finishing, I will take one other example is, like by taking the shelter of this Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, what will happen? Like example, if your boat or the ship is there in the middle of the sea, with the big tides, it will shake, right? When turbulence happen, like with the big tides hitting the boat, it will shake. And it will, you feel very scary situation if you are. But when the same ship or the boat anchored in the shore, whatever big tides come, it will not impact, right? So, but same way, our situation is, if you take the shelter of Krishna, it's like an anchor. So you will be able to overcome all this. Takes closer to Krishna, either it is directly or indirectly. That is the spiritual. You are taking the decision based on your spiritual knowledge. If it is taking away from Krishna, that is based on the material knowledge. So it's already 8:48. I will conclude, stop here. Any comments? Any questions? Yes, Mataji. Same Brahman. Yeah. Yes. it's like sometimes silence is the answer for everything. So you don't need to argue. If sometimes you may not win by arguing with other person, but just simply by staying silent, you will you can solve the situation in a different. Yeah, it's personality, and it's at the end when see it's like Krishna's Leela arrangement, everything. That's the lessons. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So any other comments? Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.